Hey there, it's Amelia. In this video, I'll review opening, saving, closing, and printing in Microsoft Excel. Let's get started. So to execute all the commands I mentioned, we're still going to go ahead and click File and use the File menu. But if you notice, in this version of Excel, and I'm using Excel 2016, which is primarily the same as 2013, and you can also use most of the steps I'm going over today in 2010 and 2007 Excel. But there's been a few changes to this File menu. First, I want to point out some differences in the Open and Save As options. So if I click on Open, you'll notice that instead of an open dialog box, now Excel uses the whole right side, the whole right pane, to display the open option. You can open recent files, which are listed here. You can also click OneDrive, which is for cloud-based storage. You do have to sign in and set that up. Also, this PC, which is similar to my computer, opens the default folder of documents, and I have a samples subfolder that it opened. Add a place to allow you to add locations if you use Office 365 or OneDrive. And finally, Browse, which you're used to seeing. That's the usual dialog box that looks like File Explorer, which used to be called Windows Explorer, and before that, it was called File Explorer. Windows 10 has renamed Windows Explorer back to File Explorer. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel. As I want to point out, in the Save As option, you're used to seeing a Save As dialog box, but now in newer versions of Excel, there's it uses the right side, the right pane for the Save As options. That has several of the ones that I've already mentioned in Open: OneDrive, this PC, Add a Place, and Browse. So nothing much has changed. Once you click on one of the options, it's just a matter of navigating to the correct folder to either open or save your document. I also want to point out a few enhancements in the File menu. For instance, there's Info, which is for document properties, conversion, and protection options. Share, for easy ways to share with others via email, blog, or online. Export, to create PDF, XPS documents, or other file types. Account, for accessing your Microsoft account options. Feedback, to provide feedback to Microsoft. Options, for setup of global options. And finally, add-ins, for additional add-ins that you might have installed on your computer. So let's get back to Open, Save, and Close. So other than the File menu, another way to execute these commands via keyboard shortcuts would be Control-O for Open, Control-S for Save, or Control-W for Save and Close. This option saves and then immediately closes your spreadsheet. So now let's talk about printing. I'm going to go ahead and click Print now from the File menu. And the keyboard equivalent to that is Control-P. And once you hit Print, if you don't change a thing, Excel will use the default options that you see here to print your worksheet. However, you can make changes, including scaling, to customize your printing. The preview of the document is here on the right, and if you're happy with it, you can just go ahead and click Print. But in this case, we want to make some changes because this is a very wide worksheet, and we need to change a couple things, like we need to change the orientation to landscape and change the scaling, etc. So let's just go over the options here. Here you can change the number of copies. Here you can change your printer if you have more than one printer installed. In settings, it will, if you don't change a thing, it'll print the active sheets, which for most of us will just be the single worksheet that we were working on. And if you have more than one sheet, you could select more than one sheet back in your worksheet by holding down the Control key and clicking on the additional sheet tabs, and that will then print all the sheets that you have selected. Or you can select to print the entire workbook or print a particular selection if you use your mouse and just select a portion of a worksheet. Next would be the pages, so you could select a particular range. Next, it's set to collate. You can change that if you have multiple copies to uncollate it if you need to. The orientation right now is set to portrait, and I want to change this to landscape. And I could see a little bit more of the worksheet here, but I need to condense it a little bit more. Next, letter size is selected for the paper size, and in this case, because I have a very wide worksheet, I'm going to go ahead and switch to legal size paper. And now I could see even more of my worksheet. Margins are set for normal, and I want to go ahead and change that to narrow. You also have an option to change to wide margin or set your own custom margin. So I'm going to select narrow. And finally, scaling. So scaling, if I go ahead and click on the drop-down menu, will automatically attempt to fit everything in your worksheet on one page. You'll also have some other options here, fit all columns or fit all rows. And then you have custom scaling options. So custom scaling options, I'll go back to fit sheet on one page in a moment, but first I want to show you the custom scaling options. So this opened up the page setup, which I can also open if I had clicked on the page setup down here. In the page setup, it gives you some of the same options that I had already gone over, including the orientation and paper size, etc., but it also includes the scaling here in the center. So the fit to is the same as the fit to options that I mentioned in the pull down under the scaling here. And if you want to adjust it manually, you would adjust the percent here. So I'm going to try 80 and see how that looks. Now that looks better, but I actually still have more of the worksheet that's not showing. So I'm going to go back into custom scaling, and I'm going to try, this time I'm going to try 60. Better, but still not fitting everything on the page. So instead I'm going to go ahead into scaling, and I'm going to select fit sheet on one page. And that looks perfect. Now my whole worksheet is on one page. Because I use legal size paper, I can fit even more across, and that's it. And that's how you would use the scaling options when you print. Well, that's it for today's video. If you found this video helpful, please leave a comment below. If you like this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please click subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.